Raiders! Welcome to Raiders Fan Radio. This is your Uncle Mosh coming to you from the Dago Dungeon. Join us as Raider Nation takes a lighter side journey with the worldwide fans of the dark side.
Okay, we're back. Look left, look right. Villapiano, a leaping pass. Touchdown!
We miss you. We love you. And we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Intercepted by Khalil Mack. Touchdown! Raiders!
The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Well, I love this team. I think this team can win.
What is up, Raider Nation? Your old buddy Murph back here again for another fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. We are trudging on into episode number 81. 81, and of course, always naming our shows after a player. There's only one guy to name this episode after, and it's not Pharaoh Brown. It's one Tim Brown. But so in order to talk about Tim Brown, can't talk about it by myself. I got to bring in my favorite co-host, my cousin, my friend, and yours from the Pacific Northwest. Welcome, Sonny, to Raiders Fan Radio.
What about Warren Wells, bro, or Morris Bradshaw, or Greg Lathan, who played in 1987 and got 5 catches, dude? What about them? No love for them?
Dude, it's all about Timmy. You know it's got to be about Timmy.
Michael Riviera, only because his sister was pretty cool? Come on, what?
Well, you know what? I thought we had something in Michael Rivera there for a little while, but he ended up kind of we traded him. Where did he go? Do you remember? I don't remember.
He went to go selling cars.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Michael Riviera was unfortunately in that 15-year span where every year and every player we brought in, we're like, oh, yeah, he could be something. And then he turned out to be nothing.
True.
So, yes.
All right,
Tim Brown, far and away Tim Brown.
Far and away, Los Angeles / Oakland Raider from 1988 to 2003. He is a 9-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, a second-team All-Pro in 1996. He's the NFL receptions co-leader in 1997. He is part of the NFL 90s All-Decade team. Of course, won the Heisman Trophy at Notre Dame in 1987. Sporting News Player of the Year in 1987. UPI Player of the Year and Walter Camp Award. And I'm reading all of that from Wikipedia if you can't tell. But Sonny, right, he is Tim Brown, and I had this discussion with Scott, and it's becoming one of my favorite questions to ask people about the Raiders, and that is the Mount Rushmore of Raiders, right? And we spot Al Davis always, but Tim Brown's one of the guys, right? He's one of the ones of the other 3 that could join Al on Mount Rushmore. He's one of the other 3 guys that could be up there. Of course, there's a lot of Raiders that are deserving of that, but Timmy's one of the guys, right? Like, he's one of the all-time greatest, even if he's not on your Mount Rushmore, right?
It's an interesting conversation. I guess you have to have a couple criteria markers, and you have to know what those are. Obviously, Tim Brown was a Raider, but he played 1 year for Tampa in 2004. He only played in 15 games. He had 24. Not it was a waste of a season, basically, right?
Pretty much.
But he did play in Tampa, and so I guess you have to ask, if you're going to put a guy on the all-time Mount Rushmore Raider list, do they have to have stayed with the Raiders the whole time? Doesn't it taint them a little bit to have them have been with somebody else?
Well, that's why I always put Howie on there. That's why Howie's one of my guys, but despite he's one of my all-time favorite players, if not my all-time favorite player. Howie's on there because he went tip to tail, right, with his entire career with the Raiders. So he's. But
even Stabler didn't.
But see, that's the thing. Stabler didn't, and he's on the list. Charles Woodson, Willie Brown. Like, if you think of the guys, even Ted Hendricks. I mean, there's a lot of all-timers that weren't career Raiders. So yeah, I think you could further define it that way. I always just look at it as this.
Madden would qualify.
Madden would qualify, and I mean, but really, if you want to get that technical about it, Al Davis wouldn't. You know what I mean? He was part of Los Angeles Chargers before he was part of the Raiders. So, I mean, I think it's somebody that embodies the spirit of the Raiders. That, to me, are the guys that when you look at them, do you think not only to associate them with the Raiders, but you associate the spirit and the whole idea of the Raiders with them? And that's why, to me, it's always Al Davis, it's always Madden, it's always Stabler, it's always Tim Brown, it's always Charles Woodson, it's always Howie Long, right? Like, it's always Shell and Upshaw. Like, there's a, like Upshaw probably, nobody ever puts the offensive lineman on their list, but freaking or even Art Shell, like either one, like Art Shell coached the team twice too. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a handful of guys, man, and that's why it's such a fun list, because I didn't even mention Jim Otto yet, right? Like, that's why it's such a fun question, is it because there's not a wrong answer, but it's really freaking hard to answer it, There's
several wrong. Any answer that doesn't agree with us is a wrong answer.
That's true.
So, yeah, I think you have to put Tim Brown on there. I mean, in that era, from 88 to 03, besides Gruden being there wasn't much going on. And I think he had 1,000 yards every year from 93 all the way through 2001. So, the guy was a stud, returning kicks for us, or return punts for us.
And the thing I think that often gets overlooked, and something I think really, truly celebrates and is a testimony to Tim Brown's talent, look at the list of quarterbacks he had to deal with. He's not, this wasn't Marvin Harrison with Pay throwing to him, or, you know what I mean? You could list off a million other guys, Jordy Nelson with
Todd Marinovich in that span right
yeah,
there?
exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Wait,
yeah. 88, right?
Jay Schrader.
But there you go. But that's it. Somewhere. It's Jay Schrader. It's Jeff George. It's
Jeff Hostetler.
Hostetler, yes. Like, that's what you're looking at.
Rich Gannon, yeah.
Rich Gannon, of course. And now, granted, he had some great years with Rich Gannon, but he also had Marcus Tuiasosopo. You know what I mean? Like if you look at the amount of I forget. I think I should have brought it up. I saw the list one time of the amount of quarterbacks that threw Tim Brown a touchdown pass. It's ridiculous, dude. It's like 22 quarterbacks long. Like, it's just stupid. Where you look at other Hall of Fame wide receivers and they have like 2. You know what I mean? Or
really?
3. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, Tim Brown had just, an absolute carousel at quarterback that he had to deal with. So that's just like I said, again, further testimony of how great he was, is that, he made those guys look good at
19.
Really? You found it? There you go. Perfect.
19 different quarterbacks.
19 quarterback. How many have thrown touchdown passes to Julio Jones?
Jeez.
Maybe
crazy,
2?
Dude.
Maybe. Matt Ryan and whoever else was playing for Matt Ryan when Matt Ryan was hurt, right? Like, so if you think about like how good those players were with a guy, look how good Timmy was with 19 quarterbacks. Does that have the names? Does any of the names? Throw out some of those names, dude. The ones we named off, like just some of the more ones that came top of mind. There's some obscure,
Here you go. Right.
Okay,
I think this is the list.
Okay.
You got 5 seasons with Rich Gannon, 4 with Jay Schrader and Jeff Hostetler, 2 with Jeff George, and 1 with Steve Berline and Brian Greasy. He also caught passes from Vince Evans, Todd Marinovich, Billy Joe Holbert, David Klingler, Donald Hollis. There you go.
Hollis.
Wade Wilson, Bobby Hoying, Marcus Tuiasosopo, Rick Meyer. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Steve Martin, you little Tennessee out there. Rob Johnson, Brad Johnson, and Chris Sims.
Unbelievable. Isn't that crazy? Those are just the guys that threw him touchdown passes. That's not even the amount of quarterbacks he played with. Like, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The other thing that this is why we hate Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice was always getting all the praise, but we knew we had Tim Brown, and we knew how good Tim Brown was. But I always felt because, they played such close proximity to each other, even when the Raiders were in L.A., Jerry Rice got all the credit. But Tim Brown was the stud, but he was almost like an afterthought to Jerry Rice. So this is why I hate when Raiders fans want to claim Rice or have a Rice jersey. I'm like, by doing that, you almost discredit Tim Brown because Jerry Rice was Montana Young's guy and Brown was our guy. And so when you want to honor Rice as a Raider, you kind of do a disservice to Brown in my eyes.
Yeah, and there's a couple points there on that. You're right. Absolutely. It robs attention away from Timmy, and it does dishonor him. And also, there's another example. So Rice not only had 1 Hall of Fame quarterback, but 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, plus an MVP in Rich Gannon. So, like that dude was ever starving for a good quarterback. And then here we got our guy had to go through 19 of them. So, Timmy Brown is an all-timer. He's one of the all-time greatest. And, I'm glad to celebrate him here on Raiders Fan Radio for episode number 81. But I have one more question for you. We know the Raiders don't retire numbers. And actually, we talked to Scott Winter upcoming in this later on this show. We have a great interview with Scott Winter. And we talked to Scott about the Raiders not retiring jersey numbers. And I made a couple of jokes about Pharaoh Brown, who wears number 81 now for the Raiders. And how, that's pretty funky, right? I get that we don't retire numbers, but we have the same name on the number 81.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think they should allow that. That I'm against. I get that we don't retire, but you can't let somebody roll with the same number, because every time I'm watching a game now, we see him on the sideline, just seeing Brown 81, it just reminds me of how much Pharaoh Brown is not Timmy Brown.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool though, it's a reminder of, there's now Grant didn't Timmy he went T Brown on his jersey, didn't he?
I'm sure for some years. Yeah, he did. I'm sure for some years when there was another player named Brown on the team. Yeah, I'm sure.
But
he did.
That is funky though.
It is.
He would be a jersey that was retired, wouldn't he?
I would think. Yeah, I would think so. I
mean,
I guess the good news is you could probably get a
Shaker.
Pharaoh Brown jersey for $6 right now, and then just say it's a Tim Brown.
Other thing.
Just say it's a Tim Brown jersey.
But
anyways,
a throw up instead of a throwback.
Yeah. There you go. Throw up jersey. Good stuff, Sonny. So episode number 81 here on Raiders Fan Radio. We're going to get to quite a few. Not say quite a few things, considering that it's the smack dab in the middle of the offseason, and really all there is to talk about is OTAs. But before we do that, let's go to our contact info and let Uncle Mosh tell you how to get in touch with us.
Hey, boys and girls, this is Uncle Mosh. That's right. Somebody actually claims Sonny and Murph. These two. Check them out on their website, RaidersFanRadio.com. You can friend them on Facebook at Raiders Fan Radio, or you can like their fan page at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Hey, I don't tweet. I don't even know how to use a Twitter, but they do. You can tweet them at Raiders Fan Radio. Call them. Leave a voicemail if you want. Go old school. 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Hey, do this. Please subscribe and rate Raiders Fan Radio on iTunes. You can listen to the show on all podcast services like Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, and many, many more. Okay, am I done? Did I say all the stuff I was supposed to say? All right, I'm out of here.
Sonny, speaking of all that contact information, you can check out our Facebook page, our listener page, our show page, whatever you want to call it. We are within 15 of 3,000. So by the time this show drops, maybe we'll be all the way there. But just to let you know, Raider Nation, the last 50 likes that we get to the page, we're going to pick one at random, and we're going to give you a prize. We're going to send you maybe a Raiders Fan Radio t-shirt or a gift card to deadpiratesports.com. We're going to definitely send you something as a show of thanks. We're going to pick one at random of the last 50, so there's 15 more spots. So in case it's not to 3,000 yet, by the time you hear my voice right now, go out there, hit that like button, and you can be eligible to win a prize from us here at Raiders Fan Radio. And thank you to all of you that have already gotten that number up close to 3,000. That is pretty cool stuff, and we are very appreciative of it. All right, so did you have something on that?
I was just going to say RIP to Uncle Mosh's appendix.
Yes.
Somewhere now in appendix heaven, floating in some bile somewhere.
Yeah, it sure is. And
that appendix of all appendixes has been through quite a bit.
That's been through quite a bit. You know, they say that the reason that we have an appendix is because like back in the old days when we used to eat like tree bark and stuff, that it was like a secondary digestive pouch.
You don't think Uncle Mosh at one point in his life may have eaten tree bark? What's the over-under?
He's on a plant-based diet, right? So you never know. The tree bark could have made him. But thank you to all the well-wishers out there. I put up a picture of Uncle Mark, or Uncle Mark. That's his real name, in case you're wondering. I put a picture of Uncle Mark / Uncle Mosh from the hospital room right before he went in, or right as he was admitted. Through the ER there, and he's of course wearing his Raider hat and fired up and ready to take this thing on. And so I threw that picture up, and everybody was very kind in all your words and well wishes and prayers and everything. And so send Uncle Mosh a lot of good vibes Raider Nation, you guys rock, man. Raider Nation is family, Sonny, as we know, literally in our case and figuratively in many, many cases, and it shows when times like this come up. Uncle Mosh was not in any imminent danger or anything, but it was just really cool to have people hit him up and let him know that they were thinking of him and sending them good vibes and prayers. That was really cool, and one of my favorite things about Raider Nation.
Agreed.
All right, Sonny, so this week we are going to cover a handful of news stories. We're going to talk mainly about OTAs. That's really dominated the Raiders news landscape. So we're going to talk a little bit about OTAs and maybe some potential free agent moves still on the horizon. Then we're going to talk about a little Villapiano story. A friend of the show, Phil Villapiano, and his family, and of course Andrea, who is spearheading the effort to get her dad into the Hall of Fame. We have a story relating to that. Then we have another clip from the Return to Excellence audio documentary. I've gotten a lot of really cool responses from Raider Nation. The guys are really enjoying hearing those flashbacks. It's a throwback to a throwback, right? Because it was recorded in 2000, and now here we are 18 years later, and throwing back to it. So it's really cool stuff, and we got a really good one this week. One, because it ties into Timmy Brown, because he is one of the featured players in this flashback, and then also it was a Battle of the Bay, which we know upcoming this season will be the last time that we're going to see a Battle of the Bay when the Raiders take on the Niners in Santa Clara. And then we got a cool interview with one Scott Winter. Scott is a credentialed writer for the Raiders. He's a reporter for the Raiders. Started off as Carolina Raider back in the day, and we had him here on Raiders Fan Radio. And, man, Scott has paved out a really cool career for himself. He was a fan. But, Sonny, you know as well, it's not better than I do, kind of Scott's journey. He busted his hump, man, and really worked towards that credential and becoming an official source of news for the Raiders, and worked as a beat writer and goes on the road with the team and attends OTAs and owners meetings, and he's right there right in the face of John Gruden and Mark Bedane and Mark Davis and everybody else nowadays. So Scott was gracious with his time this week to join us for an interview, so that was really cool to kind of catch up with him and hear about what he's been up to lately. And, of course, we talk heavily about what's going on with the Oakland Raiders and what he's seeing there on the ground from OTAs and from Vegas, because Scott's there in Vegas attending to the team. So pretty cool stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about OTAs. Sonny, have you been keeping up with some of the news stories that have come out of OTAs this week?
There's only one news story that matters, Murph, and that is Derek Carr is the son John Gruden never had. He's also the quarterback John Gruden never had. And anytime you see them in a picture together, it's either Gruden with that creepy, weird smile going on, or it's, Derek Carr, talking back to him, telling him something, or it's Gruden rushing off the edge because the car's, dropping back and stuff like that. Like, it's pretty fun, even from, thousands of miles away and just looking at pictures to observe. I couldn't imagine what it's like being there. And, the small videos we get, the small glimpses into OTAs, it just looks like it's completely different mindset, completely different attitude, completely different way of being, if you will. And there was a tweet earlier this week, gosh, I forget, I think it was Jared Cook, said something along the lines of, this is how real coaches do it, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a shot across the bow to, Jack Del Rio, whose coaching career is resting somewhere where Uncle Mosh's appendix is currently at as well. And it was definitely a shot across the bow, but it just lets you know that this is a completely different unit, man. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the intensity. Granted, Gruden hasn't coached in 17 years. Did you know, Murph, it's the longest span of a head coach ever returning to his former team. And so, there's a lot of unknowns. I'm definitely not going to hype it up like we did last year with Todd Downing, and then we were all crushed.
Ugh.
But it just seems it's a different vibe. It's moving forward, and they're all having fun. And can't argue with that, man. Also, Kelechi Osemele might have the biggest thumbs I've ever seen in my life. I was looking at some pictures the other day, and the glove of his thumb, it was huge, dude. And this isn't a knock against him. Like, I'd be curious to know, like, how big that guy's hands are. Just out of common courtesy.
Well, and you know what they say about guys with big hands.
I didn't want to go there, Murph. I'm just genuinely curious about the size of his hands.
That just means they got big gloves.
Yes, there you go.
Be respectful of the journey, man. We got a long way to go, but we got to start laying blocks every day.
He brings it every day. He has another level that he takes it to, and he hasn't stopped yet.
He keeps you really engaged. He's just a great coach. He loves the game, and that actually shows on the field and through his intensity.
He really makes you like football again. It's not all about learn, beat you down. He's trying to teach you something and take you somewhere that you've never been before, right? So a lot of that comes on us as players to be able to catch up with him because he brings it.
That's just his way of showing that he loves you and he sees the potential in you to actually be a great football player. So if he's not yelling at you, then you know something's wrong.
I think he definitely has guys buying in. I mean, I bought in for sure because he knows what he's talking about. And you can tell a difference in a coach that knows what he's talking about and a coach that does not. And he knows what he's talking about.
There it is. That's exactly what you were alluding to, man. That's Jared Cook. That's Doug Martin. You hear Keith Smith in there. Of course, Derek Carr. Completely different mindset, completely different attitude going on around. And, just, we're suckers for excitement, right? Because, when your team is bad, it's always nice to, see something good happening and see something positive. And we're willing to latch on as anything as Raider fans because we've, kind of been on the wrong end of the stick here for quite a few years. So it's nice to hear the excitement, though. That's what you want. You want your players buying in. You want them to be invested. You want them to, to be willing to dedicate to the new schemes, the new mindset, and they're all in. You want their buy-in, right? And that's what it sounds like the Raiders are doing. The players are buying in both sides of the ball, right? Doesn't matter what facet of the game you're talking about. The players are in. And what more can you ask than that?
I'm curious to see if the talk of Doug Martin pushing Marshawn Lynch for the number one gig is true, or if it's just a little bit of hyperbole and stuff like that. Because Doug Martin, I think he's like one of only two guys to rush for back-to-back so many yard seasons or something like that. But I think the last 2 years, he also was one of the only guys to rush for under 3 yards a carry. So he's definitely past his prime. He's not the muscle hamster no more. Maybe he's the muscle slug or something like that. But we know he has potential. So I'm really curious to see if the talk of him pushing Lynch is legit or if that's just camp talk and trying to get people hyped up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I asked Scott about that as well. We're going to hear his look at it from seeing him live at OTAs. But I think that, with guys like Doug Martin, it's really, and I don't know if it's because they're both the same age and they're both kind of the same build and they're both from the same kind of, they're both from Oakland. But it reminds me of MJD. Reminded me when we picked up Mauricio, and it was but I think the little bit of a difference is that Mauricio Drew was good for a long, long time, and then just, like running backs do, they, tend to fall off a cliff in productivity when they approach the age of 30. But Martin was hurt a lot, and I think that sans injury, his productivity would have stayed up a lot more, and so those players are always interesting, right? Because you never want to judge a player that's coming off of an injury. But then there are such things, too, where players just can't ever escape the injury bug, and they just never return to their potential. But the ones that do, so the good news is this, the ones that do typically will come all the way back and still be productive later in their careers because they haven't been taking all those hits, right? When you're only playing half a season, you know what I mean, a quarter of a season, that's a lot of wear and tear on your body that hasn't taken place. So maybe Martin does have a little bit left. I don't know.
There's only 2 years of his 6 years total did he play in 16 games.
There you go.
And of those 2 years, he had over 1,400 yards on the ground, average 4.6, 4.9. The rest of the seasons, he played in 6 games, 11 games, 8 games, and then 11 games. And the last year he played, last 2 years, he's averaged 2.9 yards per carry. Definitely not the running back, but he was also in let's face it, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense that wasn't, breaking any records for anything and stuff like that,
That's true.
So again, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting to follow. So we heard in those clips, not only from Doug Martin, but we heard a little bit of Derek Carr. I want to go back to a little bit more audio. We have kind of the lengthier version of some of Derek Carr's comments, and some pretty interesting ones that came out.
He always makes it uncomfortable for us. And now playing a lot of football, it's so uncomfortable in practice that when we get to the games, man, it's gonna be nice. I meet with him, every morning, and he'll say something to me in that meeting, at whatever 5:30, and then he won't bring it up the rest of the day, and then he'll throw it at me in practice. And that's after all the meetings, after all the conversations, after all those things, making sure I still, am on top of the little thing that he gave me in the morning, and just. It just continues to push me, man, to get absolutely everything out of me, and it's been really cool.
Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall in those 5:30 meetings with those two guys?
Absolutely. I had a boss one time that early on in my career, a guy that was in our training department, was just real aggressive, real abrasive. Would almost kind of beat you down a little bit. And I was part of this group of about 8 guys in this training class. And, amongst ourselves, we were like, oh my gosh, this guy's just a total jerk. And he's so mean. And he's just like, wow, I didn't think it was going to be like this. And at one point, it was about halfway through, it was like an 8-week program. And about 4 weeks in, you could tell that everybody's getting a little frustrated. Everybody's starting to get a little frayed, right? The emotions were starting to run a little bit raw. And he just kind of stopped everybody and he said, look, let me tell everybody something. Number one, you've all got the job. You're not going anywhere. So I'm not trying to run you off. But what I am trying to do is to make you uncomfortable here, because if you're uncomfortable here and you learn how to deal with me, when you go out there into the real world and you're out there in the field, there isn't anybody that's going to do to be able to get you off your game, because you've adjusted to me, and I'm going to be tougher on you than anybody ever will out there. And that really reminded me a lot of Derek Carr's comments that, like, Gruden is pushing him, and he's going to, and I think it's going to get more so, especially as we get into, like, for real training camp, when guys really, you talk about emotions running high, and, people start getting the frustrations start to come out, and things get scrappy and all that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that as we get into and because Gruden is going to push him, and then then it's never going to get any worse than that. Then when you're playing Denver, right, or you're playing at Kansas City, you're going to be able to handle your business because it was never tougher than it was in practice or what, like I said, or in the meeting room or whatever else. I think it's great. Conceptually, I've experienced that kind of training firsthand, and to me, it reflects a lot of those comments from Derek Carr. What do you think?
Well, and it also doesn't sound like it's I'm tired of this son of a blank breathing down my neck, grueling either. It sounds like it's a understand it. I get what he's trying to do, and I appreciate it, and I want more of it. You know what I'm saying? Like in your situation, it was almost like this guy is riding our butt. We can't stand him. But in this situation, it's like, do we love this guy because he's grinding us, and we want more of it? And I think that's what makes Gruden so special, is that he can put you in that uncomfortable situation. He can be the guy that rides you and grinds you and wants more out of you, and yet you still come back every day wanting more. And I wonder, how much after last season of Derek Carr not getting that, is he like craving that now? Because if you're a good athlete, you understand the process and you understand what it takes to be a great superstar athlete. And I get the sense that Derek has that in him. He wants to be that guy. I mean, he just grew up around sports, watched his brother go into the NFL. There's so many different things driving him that I get the sense that he really deep down wants that. And while he may have liked it last year with Todd, you have to know he went home and the late nights talking to his wife going, I don't know if Todd's the guy or not, And this year, having Gruden, I mean, that's got to be a dream come true for a young guy like Derek with the talent he has to have that guy in his locker room, essentially, So I like it. I think it's cool. And like I say, anything's cool in May, now June, but will it be cool in September? I hope so. I sure hope so.
Well, iron sharpens iron, right? And we talked a lot last week about how, or not last week, but last year about how when you want to be comfortable, right? You're not going to grow when you're comfortable. And the Raiders in the offseason last year got comfortable. I think that probably just like we bought into the hype. I'm sure they bought into
12-4. We would win the Super Bowl if Derek doesn't get hurt. Now we're bringing in Todd Downing. Yeah.
Yep, you know that happened. And so, that didn't improve Derek's game. And I think that he's a smart enough guy to realize that, look, if you're not challenged, then you're not going to progress. And so now he's, look, if you're a 35-year, if you're Aaron Rodgers, no, you don't need somebody pushing you like that anymore, right? Tom Brady doesn't need anybody pushing him. Tom Brady's going to push himself, right? Aaron Rodgers is going to push himself. I don't know Ben. He's kind of a slob, but but there are those quarterbacks they don't need. But Derek's still young enough in his career. He does need that. And I think this is a match made in heaven, right? Like, I think it's going to be great.
It seems like it. I mean, yeah, it seems like a match made in heaven. Exactly. If Gruden was maybe, 10 years younger, maybe, I don't know, but maybe it's good timing, Aging coach, wants to win one, young up-and-comer, I mean, Derek right now is 27. This is the prime time of his career. He's been in the league 4 years, going into his 5th year, 3-time Pro Bowler. Everybody knows about Derek, right? 21-12, 32-13, 28-6, 22-13. I mean, the dude's a stud. Those are all his touchdown interceptions. This is the prime time of his career. It really is. And having Gruden come in for that, maybe, I mean, the upside, the ceiling of this is really, really high. This could be the start of a truly special Belichick Brady type relationship between Carr and Derek, between Carr and Gruden. I mean, it really could, But again, it's June, so we don't know. But it sure seems legit and seems like it's going to be the real thing.
So how about some of the other spots? There's I feel like the Raiders are not done yet. I feel like that we don't even have our camp roster set yet, or I feel like there still could be more to come. We saw. Bowman was a late addition to the team. Heck, we were 4 or 5 games in last year when that happened. I feel like the Raiders still have more moves to make, especially, as camps start and injuries start to happen and players start to move around more. Rosters are cut to 53, all that kind of. I think that we still got between, I don't know, what's the over-under? Let me ask you this. What's the over-under on players to still get added via free agency? We'll start it at 6. Over or under, Sonny?
To still get added?
Yeah.
What'd you say, 6?
Yeah.
I'll go under.
Under? Because, I know we're talking, Michael Kendricks here. That's been one that's been floated out here recently. I don't know. I think that guys like Reggie.
A lot of it's going to depend on Mac, dude. Like, do we force him to play this year on his current salary, and do we franchise tag him to keep him for next year, so we don't have to give him the big contract? Or do we give him the big contract? For all we know, Mac and Raiders are saying, hey, we'll let you play this year. We'll franchise tag you. We'll move to Vegas. We'll give you a huge contract. Then you have less taxes on your. We don't know what's going on, and so I think that plays a huge role in how many other players they sign, because they don't have a lot of cap space left, do they?
Well, they got about $5 million. There's a great article this week at RaidersSnakePit.com. If you're not a subscriber to Raiders Snake Pit, definitely check them out. It's our good friend of the show, Steve Corcoran, and Bill Williamson, and they do an awesome job of just really current Raider news, and a lot of it. And anyways, and so they have an article in there about the cap space, and basically it's this. Right now, the Raiders are sitting with about $5 million, but they can restructure Carr at any point. And then with players like, Breno Giacomini, Reggie Nelson, there's a lot of players that they could cut ties with. And, that's a lot of space, and there's no dead money attached to them. So they could make a lot of room real easily. And so the point of the article was that, if they wanted to restructure Mac, they could do it tomorrow. But what are the other... or if a real attractive free agent was out there, say they wanted to chase Des Bryant for whatever reason.
No.
I know that's a hard no, but just as an example, if they want to, they could. The Raiders can move stuff around enough to where they could. So I just think that there's more to be made. I don't think we're done yet. I think we got 3 or 4 big moves, not big. I mean, we're not talking about signing Hall of Famers here, but noticeable moves that the Raiders are going to make. But
here's some interesting ones. According to overthecap.com, they have the Raiders at 2.8 million team cap space. But that could be factoring in, all the added-ons. They got 91 players currently, right? If they cut Kelechi Osemele, they'd save $10 million. Looks like he's due for a contract, I think next year. Wow. If they cut Bruce Irvin, they'd save $8 million. And this is no dead money. This is pure savings. It looks like Bruce is up for a contract next year. If they cut Jared Cook, this is, I think, where it gets interesting. They'd save $5.6 million. Now, of those three, say they found somebody, who do you think they'd cut to bring the other person in? Say it was a guy they wanted, whatever position, you had to get him. Who do you cut to get him?
Wow. Well, I don't think they're going to move they're not going to move one of the best offensive guards in the game. They're not going to do that. He'll be a lifer, hopefully. Gosh, I hate to say it because I really like the guy, but Bruce Irvin's your guy.
I think they cut Cook.
No, we don't have a tight end. We don't have a pass catching tight end.
Yeah, but Gruden can put anybody up there to.
No, man.
I think what Irvin brings to the team is much more than what Cook brings to the team.
I would agree with you off the field, but not on the field. And if a guy, and here's the thing, is that if Cook is it, like he is it for our pass catching tight ends. Bruce Irvin, if Arden Key does well, right?
If Arden Key does.
Yeah, but same thing. And that's why I think, like in the article, it states that Breno Giacomini, because if Parker, right, or Miller, or one of these guys starts rotating in as a starter, what do you need Giacomini for? You know what I mean? Like, he's an easy one to just cut loose. So I don't know. I think that's what I'm saying. So there you go. Like, there's a lot of discussion still there, I think, left to be had. It's going to be interesting as we continue.
I mean, Jared Cook's cool and all, but I don't know. I think
you got to have a good tight end for your quarterback, man. You got to.
Going down the list, there really is no other big name, like big money savings. Martavius Bryant would get you about $2 million. Doug Martin would get you $1.5 million. Christian Hackenberg would get you $900,000. But then they have, they got like 40 guys who are making $500,000. And so
those are gonna be cuts.
They got, and I think that's, they got 91 on the roster, and they have $2 million, in space. So once they cut all those guys, they're gonna have more money. They're gonna have lots of money, to mess around with and stuff. So
that's what I'm saying. Then they restructured Derek, and they could save $10 million right there doing that. That's So it's, I think they got a lot of room to move. So do you think they bring in Kendricks? Do you think we need Kendricks? What do you think about that? Because he right now is looks like between us and the Browns. And if you ask me, it's a no-brainer. But, yeah, they need him. Yeah, I think any linebacker help is good. You know what I mean? Especially a guy that's been pretty good at times. You know what I mean?
And the thing about him that I like is he's 27, which I think is really good. Because if you look at the Raiders' depth chart right now at inside linebacker, they got Tahir Whitehead, who's kind of a young guy, but then you got Derek Johnson, who's super old. And he has that LeBron Tiger kind of fade going on right now. And then if you brought in Kendricks, he could be that other extra inside guy behind Tahir and Johnson, who once Johnson goes next year, Kendricks could be that long-term guy. In Madden, Kendricks a beast, but I don't know in real life if he's that great, So we'll see what happens.
But yeah, I mean, anytime you're bringing in a veteran presence like that, like you said, a guy that's kind of smack dab in the middle of his prime, or at least on the, just barely past the halfway point of it.
He'll be 28.
Yeah, that's a killer signing. Yeah,
and he's from Fresno, which is pretty cool.
There you go. Him
semi local guy.
There you go. Well, him and Derek, man, they can hang out. They can talk Fresno Bulldogs.
Well, he went to college at Cal Bears.
Oh, okay. Well, then him and Marshawn play together? They've been in a couple years of each other. Marshawn's going to be what? 30?
31?
Nah. Close.
No.
Close.
Maybe.
Yeah. He definitely missed Aaron Rodgers.
Maybe Marshawn was part of the hazing for Michael Kendricks when he went to college.
Hey, so this is Uncle Mosh, and apparently all you got to do to host a podcast is have a microphone, a garage, and a couple of Derek Carr jerseys. Ha! These two did it. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio with Sonny and Murph.
All right, Sonny, next up, we have a really fun little story here. Just a quick audio clip from the Rich Eisen show that happened later this week. It's the end of the week. So earlier in the latter part of this week, there was a fun little clip that happened. Rich had a handful of guests on for this event that goes on in Kansas City where all these different comedians come into town, and they have charity softball tournaments and whatnot. Anyways, and so one of the guys that was in was Will Forte. And Will Forte, he's the star of the show The Last Man on Earth, and he's also SNL alum, which that's what I know him from, mainly from being MacGruber and all that stuff. Like, he's pretty funny.
Do you watch Last Man on Earth?
I do not, no.
Oh, dude. Probably one of the top 3 funniest shows on TV right now.
You're kidding.
Because me and my wife love that show because of him. And they bring in a bunch of old school Saturday Night Live characters. Dude, it's funny, dude.
Really?
Funny. Oh yeah, you gotta check it out. It's on Hulu. I think you can watch it on Netflix too.
Okay, I got Netflix. I don't have Hulu, but I got Netflix.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, well, good deal. Well, then I'll take your recommendation and check it out. So that's good to know, because I only knew him from SNL mainly, which he was amazing on SNL.
Yeah, MacGruber.
Yeah. So anyway, here's Will Forte on the Rich Eisen show.
Have you ever done the face paint situation? You ever done that?
I've not done the face paint.
Just like the body paint. The body paint.
I did get to
everything but
sit in the black hole, and I've somehow have become friends with Phil Villapiano and his family, and they're fantastic and wonderful, and we'll go to games every once in a while together.
That's old school
and that
stuff.
guy should be in the Hall of Fame.
You're pounding the table for Villapiano right here on the Rich Eisen Show, which is fine. That's great.
How about that, Sonny? Dropping Villapiano and the Villapiano family on Rich Eisen. Phil Villapiano, good friend of the show here on Raiders Fan Radio.
Hey, that's the end to get Forte on the show. I mean, call him up, man. Get him on the show. Get him on the show. What do they say? That's pretty cool. That's pretty good. I like that, and it shows that he's aware enough of the Raiders to not just drop an old name from the 70s, but he's aware that there's a campaign going to get Villapiano on the show. I'm sorry, in the Hall of Fame. Probably became aware of it because we had Villapiano on the show and got the awareness out. No, just kidding. But that's cool that it shows that he's in tune enough with Raider Nation to know what's going on, and he didn't just throw out a name, but he threw out a name that people are trying to get into the Hall of Fame, trying to get him in the Hall of Fame, and that's pretty tight. I like that a lot. That's cool.
Well, and it's a great point. And I watch Rich Eisen a lot when I'm working from home. It's always on. Dan Patrick is always on, and then of course Rich Eisen show comes on after, and he gets a lot of it because he's in LA, so he gets a lot of guests that come through, and there are a lot of actors and comedians and singers and whatnot. And when they come through, they're always asked about their relationship with sports. And so everyone's always got a team to claim, right? And so there's a lot of times where people will claim a team, but you could tell they're not really sports fans.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, they're just doing
like that one guy from San Diego we interviewed a long time ago.
Oh, Lord have mercy. That was ridiculous, dude.
Maybe 3 players of the team.
Dude, he couldn't even name Derek Carr. Like,
oh, that was funny.
And that was like right after we signed Marshawn. Like, dude, you can't go Carr, Mack, and Marshawn 1, 2, 3 and name 3 Raiders. Like, really? You're a fan, huh?
But you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
So it is. It's refreshing to hear somebody like Will Forte go on there and be, hip enough to not only claim Villapiano, but yes, help promote his bid for the Hall of Fame. And if you want to check out more of that, go to Facebook, and there's a Facebook group called, I'm saying this off the top of my head, so I'll get close enough, you can Google it. It is Phil Fu Villapiano for the Hall of Fame 2019. And it's put out by Andrea Villapiano, Phil's daughter. She has started the initiative to get him at least nominated for the upcoming Hall of Fame class. You can find her on Twitter as well. But the Facebook group is kind of the gathering point. And Will Forte is part of that group. Like, because when I heard it, I went and jumped on that Facebook group, and I just said, hey, I just heard the Villapiano family get shouted out on the Rich Eisen show. And Andrea answered and tagged Will Forte in it because he's part of the group.
That's cool.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So, yeah.
Here it is right here. Our friend and fellow member of Raider Nation, Will Forte.
Yeah, so isn't that cool? So check it out.
I just sent him a friend request.
Me too. I did it. I said to, because that whole idea of trying to get him on the show. Yes, I am efforting at this point. And so anyway, but so check it out, Raider Nation. What is it called, Sonny? Read it off. What's the official name?
It's called Phil Villapiano Foo for the Hall of Fame 2019.
There you go. So check it out. Become a member of that Facebook group and definitely support what Andrea is doing with her initiative to get Phil nominated for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And, retweet her tweets, do whatever you can to help that because, hey, man, not only are we big fans of those teams of the 70s, but we're big fans of Phil Villapiano and to get the recognition to those teams that is deserved, that were overshadowed by many, many years because, look, that era of the Raiders they were playing in and around some phenomenal football teams. And I think at times the Raiders became overshadowed because you have the teams like the undefeated Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers and whatnot. And so the more recognition we can bring to those Raiders and to Phil and the success in his playing career, the better. It's pretty good stuff. So definitely go out there and check that out.
Nobody enjoyed a good Donnybrook more than sixth-year linebacker Phil Villapiano.
This is Phil Villapiano, and you're listening to Raiders Fan Radio.
Still the coolest interview we ever did.
Still the coolest, man. He was great, huh? Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
Turning those little stories firsthand. Yeah, that was good stuff. It was good stuff.
That was cool.
All right, so next up, Sonny, we have we're going to rewind the clock back, not all the way back to the 70s, but we're going to go back to the year 2000, and we're going to take a dip back into the Return to Excellence, which is the audio documentary we've been featuring clips out of that documented the Raiders. First time we had John Gruden when they were returned to competitive football, and we're real close to making a Super Bowl run back then. And but it was the first time that the Raiders gained significance after sleeping for a little while. So we're going to go back to catch a clip of that. We're going to feature the Battle of the Bay. This is the game that they played against the Niners. This was an overtime game that was won by the aforementioned Timmy Brown. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear Coach Gruden. You're going to hear a lot of cool things from Greg Papa as we go back to the Return to Excellence and the Battle of the Bay from the year 2000.
The second quarter of the Raiders season began on the road, but it wasn't altogether unfamiliar to John Gruden's team as they headed across the Bay Bridge to renew their acquaintance with the San Francisco 49ers at 3Com Park. The geographical rivalry had been building ever since the schedule had been announced in the summertime, and fans all over the Bay Area were expecting World War III. The Niners got the better of it early on a Jerry Rice touchdown catch to make it 14-6, but then the Raiders tied it up on a Tyrone Wheatley touchdown run and a Rich Gannon two-point conversion.
High formation, Crockett ahead of Tyrone Wheatley. Here comes Wheatley off right tackle, touchdown, Raiders! And the Raiders are within two now at 14-12. And John Gruden will go for two, of course, trying to tie the game. It's a fake pitch by Gannon, going to roll out right. He can run in, he will. He'll go in easily and spike the ball in the end zone. The Raiders have tied the game at 14.
Jackson then recovered a Charlie Garner fumble, which led to Tim Brown putting the Raiders up 21-14.
High formation now, Raiders on the Niner 30. It's a play action to Kaufman. Gannon throws down the middle.
Touchdown.
Wide open, Tim Brown. Touchdown, Raiders. Tim Brown with the spike in the end zone.
The 49ers would not go away without a fight, however. Terrell Owens and Charlie Garner each caught a touchdown pass to tie the game at 28. Then Sebastian Janikowski had a chance to win the game late in the fourth quarter with a 42-yarder, but he missed it. So the Raiders and Niners went into overtime, and once again, Janikowski had a chance to be the hero.
35-yarder for Janikowski. He will kick it from the left hash mark to win the game. Here we go. Sebastian Janikowski to win the game in overtime. True will snap. Leckler will hold. Adam True. Good snap. Leckler has it down. Janikowski has it. It is no good. He missed it. He hit it so hard, it's no good.
The Niner offense was then given their opportunity to go right down the field and win the game. Jeff Garcia and company moved the football to within point-blank range for kicker Wade Ritchie. But Anthony Dorsett came up with the play of the day.
Here we go. It will be officially a field goal of 29 yards away from the left hash mark. Brian Jennings will snap. Stanley will hold. They got it down. Blocked! The Raiders blocked it! They block the kick. The Raiders live on. They will take the ball with 6:15 to go, and they have time again. They blocked it right up the middle. The first miss of the year for Wade Ritchie. Right up the gut. The Raiders come up with their second block of the game, but none bigger than this one.
With Anthony Dorsett and the Raiders special teams breaking the 49ers spirit, it was up to Tim Brown to break the Niners back.
John Gruden physically on the field, calling the plays. He pulls out Wheatley. He pulls out James Jett. The Raiders bring into the game Napoleon Kaufman. Risen goes out wide right. Tim Brown is tight left. They're going to come in long motion right on 2nd and 10. Niners blitz. It's picked up. Gannon throws out right. Open Brown's got it. Touchdown! Timmy Brown. The Oakland Raiders have won the game. He beat Monty Montgomery, and the madness is over. The Raiders have beaten the 49ers 34-28.
It was an amazing battle that both the fans and the teams would remember for years to come. And for John Gruden, it truly was the Battle of the Bay.
It was a very emotional game. You know, this was personal for me. I really wanted to win as much as anybody else. And the peaks and valleys that went through you today, if you're a Raider fan or a 49er fan, were wicked. But to come out on a winning side is great for our team, great for our fans, and now I can go to the shopping mall again.
Yeah, baby!
How about that, man? That's some good stuff, man. Adam, there's a lot in there, a lot crammed into those clips from Greg Papa and the Ticket 1050. But Sonny, my favorite was hearing Tom Flores, who does the color commentary back then and still does for Greg Papa, hearing him call Brown getting open in the end zone.
Yeah,
way early, like way before, you know what I mean? The first thing you hear is Flores going, he's open. You know what I mean? And then or whatever it is that he said, it's kind of hard to tell, but just hearing him fire up and get alert to the fact that Timmy's breaking open in the end zone, probably, before Gannon did. Like, I love that. I just love to hear that excitement. That's a good one.
Two things. One, it'd be cool to play the Conan O'Brien in the year 2000.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Copyright, huh? We can't do that.
Yeah.
But to hear Janikowski's name 18 years ago is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Janikowski kicks it in. Like, the guy's freaking ancient, But Gruden, back then, saying he really wanted it. I think that was his first and only? No. Was that his only Battle of the Bay? Because he played in November of 2002, but he was already gone, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So 2000 was the only Battle of the Bay he ever played, and then we'll have one this year, of course, the final one, so to say. So it was cool.
Was there one in 98?
94.
That was the only. That was okay. So 94 was the only one before 2000.
Yeah. You had 70, 74, 79, 82, 85, 88, 91, 94. And the 82 through 94 obviously was all LA.
Yeah, that would have been it. Yeah.
So yeah, and so this will be and in the year 2000, it was also at the Niners. So Gruden will literally never have a Battle of the Bay at the Raiders. But it was cool to hear him so excited about it because he understood the meaning behind it by saying I can go to the mall now and stuff, and so it'll be neat that the year he comes back, we'll play the last Battle of the Bay, which really isn't Battle of the Bay anymore because the Niners went to freaking Santa Clara. But it's still kind of cool that Gruden will be here for that one as well. And it's kind of neat. Kind of neat to see that tie in together.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. It's good stuff. I'm so glad we kind of waited to play the audio. I found that audio way back when, and I remember us talking about it, and you're like, what are we going to do with it? I'm like, I don't know. It's just kind of cool. But then now with Gruden back, like, I'm so glad we waited because now it's way relevant, right?
Well, I kind of knew Gruden was coming back, Josh, so I always wanted to
Yeah.
I had some insider tips for you.
Yeah. You called it. Yeah, you and Scott Winter had the inside.
Yeah. So Battle of the Bay, I mean, lots to talk about when you get there, but Raiders lead it right now 7-6, man. It's kind of it's a monumental one. It's obviously the last one, but if the Raiders win it, the all-time record will be 8-6, and we can hold that over the stupid Niners' heads forever. But if we lose it, then it's a tie, and they'll default to their stupid Super Bowl ring argument, and then we're toast. So.
Are the Niners the biggest non-consequential rivalry we have? Because, I mean, if you look at the ones that are – so we have, like, all right, the Biggies are the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Donks, right?
Well, Steelers. I would say Steelers is almost up there at, like –
But that's even a conference opponent. So I guess I would say – so maybe then out of conference even? Because the Patriots are a big one, right? Steelers are huge, right? But
Steelers are up there with Chiefs and Broncos and Chargers in my eyes, even though they're not conference. But
yeah, or division, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, not division. Yeah, I'd say Niners are up there
Niners
just because it's proximity, and you freaking hate
so.
Niners fans. I mean, yeah.
Like I used to have this. My stupid brother is a Niner fan. I used to have this argument with him all the time because I would talk about the Cowboys and Raiders rivalry and be like, "There's no rivalry there." I'm like, yes, there is. You know, it's not a rivalry like your team has a rivalry with them. I'm like, but it's like a franchise rivalry because Jerry Jones had such admiration for Al Davis and has modeled his freaking ownership legacy after Al Davis. I'm like, yes, there is a little bit of a rivalry there between them, the franchises, because of that, because of Jerry and Al. And I used to argue with him all the time. You're like, there's no rivalry between the Raiders and the – I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. But there is, and I think that outside of that, though, like there's no other teams in the NFC, right? So I think it's division. You got Steelers, you got Patriots, and Niners. Like that's it, right? Like, and then after that, it's kind of – I mean, of course, the old adage is it's us against the world, and it truly is. But, I mean, you know, more so than the Rams, maybe? I mean, like, there's one that you could, you know, of course, and then there's the old
Rams for what?
Just because of L.A. and, you know, Seahawks because they used to be in our division, you know.
Yeah, Niners are ahead of all that.
Niners ahead of all that, right? Yeah, I mean, like, there's no one else I could think of that, so it's got to be the Niners. And then, of course, but first and foremost, it's bragging rights, and it's the last shot.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Like, it's not even like a football standpoint with the Niners. It's just proximity with the Niners, really, right?
Yeah, and especially this one because that's it. Like there is no.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you got to get the bragging rights on your way out of town because you may, you know, that's it. Like this is your last shot at it. So like as you mentioned, you know, so yeah, I think this is going to be a big game, man. I think this is going to be a feisty one. Nobody stab each other, huh? Y'all be good, be cool. You know,
I'm really happy.
The last time they stopped, they stopped playing this game in the preseason because everybody kept beating the snot out of each other. Like y'all chill, man, be good, be nice out there.
I'm really happy. I'm having a new baby, and I can't go to the game.
I know that was really what we had on our list.
I'm having a new baby, and I can't go to the game. I'm really happy. I'm having a new baby, and I can't go to the game. I'm really happy. I'm having a new baby, and I can't go to the game. I just repeat that over and over until I fall asleep at night.
That's like a mantra that you have? Yeah, you rock back and forth in your chair at night with your eyes closed and repeat that.
That would be a fun game to go to, man.
Holy cow. That's the game. Like, that was the game we were going to go to this year because we can then – it's a road game, which is our fun. We like road games. Like,
but we can still go to La Villas.
But we can still go to La Villas, right? Yeah, we could still see friends and family. Like, it would have been a perfect game for us to go to. But, hey, you're having a kid. That's a good thing.
But I'm having a baby.
You're having a baby.
And that's okay.
And congratulate. Hey, and listen, let's just go ahead and dip our toe into a little bit because we're coming to the end here before we turn it over to the interview we have with Scott Winter. But Sonny, congratulations. You're having another baby, and as beautiful and wonderful as that is, and we congratulate you and your lovely wife on the daughter to come. But it's gonna probably take you away from the show for a little while, if not forever.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I got to stop having kids so I can keep podcasting.
There you go. There you go. So
yeah, it might add some complications, but we'll figure that out.
So, yeah, so more on that to come for sure, but we still got Sonny for a little bit longer that we know of. But, yeah, that could show to be a little bit of a volatile thing. Your podcasting career, as you continue to have children, it gets more and more, what's the word? What's the word for in jeopardy?
I don't know. I'm just glad I can prove to the world I've had sex 3 times.
Sitting there in your kimono, looking at your baby in her caftan. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio. That's right. 2 bald-headed idiots talking to you guys. Keeping their foreheads slick and sexy. That's by Raiders fans, for Raiders fans, the only fans that matter.
All right, cousin Slick and Sexy. I had a chance to catch up with good friend of the show, guy we hadn't talked with for quite a while, Scott Winter. Got a chance to catch up with him and talk about what's going on in the land of the Raiders and what's going on in Scott's world. And I had a really good time talking to him, and so we're going to get to that right now. All right, Raider Nation, please welcome back into Raiders Fan Radio, a credentialed writer / reporter for the NFL, and most importantly, your Oakland soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders. He is at Scott_Winter NFL on Twitter, and we just call him Scott, our good friend Scotty. Scott Winter, welcome back to Raiders Fan Radio.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure. Been a while.
It sure has. I think the last time we talked to you was week 1 at Tennessee, when we had our little tailgate there prior to week 1, and my oh my, much has changed in Raider Nation since then, huh?
I would say so, man. What a day that was. I mean, it started off great. Season started off great. It was a beautiful day. You guys had a great event going on there, and I appreciate that you invited me over to it.
Well, absolutely. And, it's funny, after that game was over, first off, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and glad that you were able to make it over and share time with us, because it was a ton of fun that day, and getting to see and meet a lot of people that we've met through the show, but getting to see them in person was yourself included was a really cool thing. So, in regards to that, so we beat the heck out of the Titans, right? Week 1, and we think, all right, here we go. We're off to the races, and then next thing you know, we're 6-10, and the Titans are knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs on their way through the playoffs. So, what a crazy year it ended up being last year, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you lack focus, when there are internal things going on, that tends to happen. 6-10. Given what was going on and what we've heard and all, no need to rehash it, but I'm surprised they even finished 6-10.
Yeah, there certainly was a lot of dysfunction that came out after the fact, and of course, it got us to where we are today, Scott. And the biggest news story of the offseason, arguably in the NFL, has been John Gruden's return. So, I mean, so you're there, you're on the front lines, you got your finger on the pulse of the Las Vegas community and the team. And, give me your overall, Scott. I mean, there's been so much that's gone on in the offseason, with obviously that being the highlight. But give me your overall view of what the past, 3-4 months has been like.
Well, it's all John Gruden. And, all you can say is that the intensity that he brings, he's got buy-in from the players. He's got them focused on one mission, and that's winning. Learning this scheme, he's simplifying it, simplifying the calling style. It's some of these draft picks that they got. I mean, the rookie class has the potential to be one of the best that the Raiders have had if they pan out.
So who is? Give me your all-star of the draft. Give me one guy you think that the Raiders completely just nailed it, and we can see the guy wearing a gold jacket 25 years from now.
Wow,
Look at your crystal ball, Scott. Where'd they hit a home run? Who'd they hit a home run with?
The home run is Mo Hurst.
There you go.
Flat out. Right now, Mo Hurst is taking first-team snaps at OTAs, and he's unseated so far. Now, granted, it is early, and we reserve speculation until camp and all of that when things get a little bit more intensified. But I don't know how it's going to be more intense. Gruden's out there; the intensity is there. I mean, just watching him when I was out at minicamp, it was pretty intense. But Mo Hurst is right now penciled in as your defensive tackle 3-tech.
As far as the draft goes, he's our home run. What about, and we've made a ton, right, of acquisitions and free agency. Who's our home run there?
Well, over 20 different players have been brought in. I would say it was a toss-up between Rashawn Melvin and, let's see here, traded for Martavius Bryant. That's another one that I'm going to tie with Rashawn Melvin. And then bringing in Derek Johnson, a real big position of need at the middle linebacker spot. And I believe that he is going to be able to hold it down for at least a year.
Do you see that as okay? So hold it down for a year. So that's something that you think the Raiders will address then in the draft, maybe next year in the 2019 draft, or look to another free agent eventually. But do you think that that's definitely a short-term solution? Obviously, with his age, right?
Right, with his age. I mean, it's not that the kid, the guy doesn't have talent. I say kid; he's 35 years old.
Hey, he's a kid to me,
talent.
Scott. I'm old enough to.
But he has talent, and he plays very well, and he covers his coverage as well. He covers tight ends well, covers running backs pretty well, and he can get in and go after the quarterback if needed and stuff the run. So, I mean, he's basically an all-around guy. I would love to have him at 25 instead of 35 because it would be a more long-term solution. But the Raiders have had this issue with middle linebacker, and they really don't want to draft high for middle linebacker because of their value. I mean, Roquan Smith was drafted, and he was the third highest paid linebacker in the league, and he hasn't played a snap.
That's unbelievable. That's going to be that was one of the more interesting picks I thought in the first round. When you think the Chicago Bears, right, you think of the monsters of the Midway, you think of Urlacher and Butkus and Singletary and all these monster middle linebackers they've had over the years, and this guy's just going to fit right in, isn't he, with that legacy?
Well, absolutely. Again, it's but it's a short-term fix. It's more of a Band-Aid, but if it gets the Raiders, into the playoffs and gets them a good chance to make a run for the Super Bowl, everybody will be singing his praise.
Scott, if you could take one player off of any active roster in the NFL, and put him on the Raiders, who would it be?
Let's see. That's a really good question.
I know, because you want to say like Aaron Rodgers, but you can't put Derek Carr on the bench, right? So
no, I'm not going to put Derek Carr on the bench. I'm not going to put any of the receivers on the bench, actually. So if I had to pick someone, maybe Xavier Rhodes. How about that?
Whoa, interesting.
Yeah, that would be
over Jalen Ramsey or Pat Peterson or any of those guys, huh?
Jalen Ramsey's definitely got it going on, but I believe that Jalen Rhodes I just like him better. I think that he's right at the peak of his career. Jalen Ramsey's got some growth, no doubt, but he also, you don't know how long his knee's going to last. Rhodes is pretty much got a clean bill of health.
Right. Well, we certainly need secondary help. No, so I mean, the Raiders, chased a lot of guys in free agency. As you mentioned, Melvin, who was looking to be a starter potentially, and then Leon Hall and whatnot. There's a bunch. Give me we won't call it a miss, Scott, but we'll just say, what was your least favorite or most unexpected acquisition for the Raiders in the offseason?
Unexpected? That they went. At the time that they went tackle, I like it now. Given what we didn't know at the time, which was Vidal Alexander getting ready to be suspended. But I was really really surprised about the Colton Smith draft pick. They would have taken him at 10. If they couldn't have made a trade back with Arizona, they were taking him at 10. So. Reggie McKenzie did some magic, worked out a trade. It wasn't the greatest trade in the world. However, you got Martavius Bryant out of it, which I think, has the potential to be a home run, even though he's, again, so many one-year players on this roster. But at the same time, Colton Miller could be the guy going forward once Penn, puts the cleats up. But that was my biggest surprise.
I echo that too, Scott. I mean, you kind of had this like sneaking suspicion that the Raiders, everyone was just so defense. Kind of had the sneaking suspicion that they were going to go offensive tackle because they were going to need to protect Derek Carr, especially with all the pass rush that's going on in the AFC West. I think what really surprised us is that it was that guy. That it wasn't Mike McGlinchey or something, right? That it was that guy, that it was Colton Miller. You said you feel better about it now. What did you see when you saw these guys firsthand at OTAs? What did you see about Colton Miller that kind of put your mind at ease as far as that pick goes?
Well, he's aggressive. I saw a very limited amount of him in person, but he's aggressive and he takes good command. And the fact that Tom Cable was giving him a lot of praise in the time that I actually saw him, I even tweeted that out, that he was getting early praise. Now he's got a ways to go. He's not your starting left tackle right now, even though that he is doing that in the OTAs. But that's only because Penn is still coming back from that foot injury. Now Penn is coming back a lot stronger and a lot faster than most people believe from that type of injury. It's a very significant one, and sometimes it ends careers. But Penn is going to be the starting left tackle as long as everything continues to progress on his foot, because he's actually doing some drills in OTAs as we speak.
So you think we'll see like Miller then on the right side then as far as taking a starting spot, or will he just kind of sit back and learn and mix in until next year?
He might just mix in until next year. They might, there's going to be a big battle for right now. Darren Sharp is over there, and he's actually doing pretty well over on the right side. So there's going to be definitely a battle there. And then, of course, you got Brandon Parker. But Sharp has played and is a little bit more advanced than Miller or Parker at this moment. Now, that doesn't mean that halfway in the season you're not looking at some, or even in camp. I mean, things can really heat up. But Colton Miller could be your backup left tackle going into the season.
Is that and Sharp? Now that's the big old guy from Florida, right? That's the
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now let me ask you this. I've heard. When Tom Cable returned, immediately everyone started talking about the scheme change. Oh, zone blocking, and Marshawn was more comfortable in a zone, and the Raiders go from a zone to a power game, and now they're going to go back to zone. What? But I've heard recently that a lot of those terms that we throw around or that we use as fans or even in the media, that maybe there's a little bit. It's not as cut and dry as that. It's not as black and white, that there's a little bit more gray area as far as how the Raiders are going to set up with their schemes and how they're going to approach, their blocking. Did you get a sense of that? Is that they're not going to be steadfast that, okay, this is the thing we're going to do, that they're going to kind of move around, and that it's going to be a little more of a fluid type approach to the running game and the blocking schemes this year?
Right. It's going to be week to week. He can. The thing is he can call a zone scheme. He call a power scheme. We're going to see a mixture of inside power, pulling, that sort of thing. You're going to see fullback. Sometimes you're going to see 3 tight end sets. It's not just going to be a straight up zone blocking scheme. It's right now everything has become like this amalgam where it's a hybrid, and that's what you can expect from Cable. They're going to attack teams in ways that they're weak. If they're weak against a zone blocking scheme, then you're going to see more zone. If they're weak against a power gap scheme, then you're going to see that. So it's going to go back and forth, and it's going to be a mixture depending on what they're facing.
So with that, I mean, obviously Marshawn is going to be I don't want to call him the bell cow, but he's going to be the featured back, whatever that feature is, whatever that consists of. Not a ton of people talking about Doug Martin. Could be because he's got an injury history. But when healthy, I mean, Doug Martin was an electric running back. I mean, he was one of the studs of the league. Do you think there's the potential there for him to, I hate to use the term overshadow Marshawn, but at least, compete for more reps, more snaps, and more carries when it comes to game time?
Yeah, right now he's the number 2 running back. He's leapfrogged over the Washington and Richard. You're looking at thunder and lightning right there, and there's going to be times where they're both in the backfield. Gruden has definitely not ruled that out, and he even pointed out there are going to be times when you see that. Right now, Martin is impressing the coaching staff. Now, don't get me wrong. Marshawn Lynch has stepped up his game as well in practice. He is taking it to a different level. I was watching him run with weights and a bag behind him and people holding on to him with a bungee cord and doing all kinds of stuff. I haven't seen, any of his documentary crew out there or anything like that. I'm not saying that they are, but he is approaching this year, I believe, and from what I've heard, a whole lot more serious than he did last year.
That's good news. Is that, do you think that's any of that with the Gruden influence, or is that more of a, is that self-moderation based on the lack of success and kind of, hate to use the word distractions, but you're right. He did have the reality show, and there was a lot else going on during the season for Marshawn last year. And then, of course, the whole Marcus Peters thing blew up, and it was a whole big issue with that that led to, you can call it distraction or not, I don't know. The team wasn't doing well, and he wasn't running well. I know that. So what do you think? You think this is more self-imposed, or is this more Gruden's influence on the team?
Well, I believe it's a bit of both. I mean, you have to have two to tango, and obviously he's bought into the Gruden method. And Gruden is bringing out the best right now in just about everybody. And if you're in his doghouse, he's going to let you know. He's going to let you know publicly. It's not about throwing people under the bus. It's the way he likes to do it. Is he likes to give people a wake-up call. And if that means saying it publicly, he's going to say it publicly. But he will also talk to people privately, and he'll say, look, this is what we want to do with you. We're looking at this film right here. This is you. We want you to be able to do this. We want you to be able to do that. So he gets buy-in from individually, but he also has gotten buy-in as a team and as a whole with his way he conducts himself.
All right, Scott, I got one more for you, and then I got some fun questions for you. I got one more of the hard-hitting stuff for you. So it's funny, I always want to say, in case you're just joining us, but if you're on a podcast, then you know that you're joining us, and you already know who our guest is. So, but it's like the radio in me. I just want to if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Scott Winter. Scott is a writer, reporter for the Raiders. You can see him. You can read his stuff find him on Twitter, Scott_Winter NFL. Hit him up there and check out Scott's stuff. He's been a longtime friend of the show and just an awesome resource for all your Raiders news. So definitely check him out. All right, so one more, and then I got some fun questions for you. Let's talk about the Khalil Mack contract. Is there anything as for us as Raider fans to be concerned about, worried about, or is this just May, soon to be June, and we all just need to calm down and eventually it will happen?
Well, right now, when it comes to Mack, from what I've heard, and they're doing everything they can to work out a deal with Mack. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to play for some other team. The Raiders are not trading him. They're going to get a deal done. It took until June last year to get Derek Carr done. It might take that longer. It might take longer with Khalil Mack. I mean, he knows his value. What I would pay attention to see if he comes in June 12th for the mandatory minicamp, or if he holds out. If he holds out, then it would be something of concern, not worry, so to speak, just concern, because at that point, he's not coming in when he's supposed to, because all of this right now that's going on is all voluntary. And the Raiders aren't worried about the fact that he's not there. They would like to have him there, but at the same time, they're getting good reps from Tank Carradine, who's actually so far right now is penciled in as the backup for Mack because he's getting first team reps over in Mack's spot on the end there. So keep an eye out for June 12th for the mandatory minicamp. And if he shows up, that's the important thing. If he doesn't, it'll be some concern because he's not getting coached. Now he's going to be in great shape. Mack is a lunch pail guy. He's not going to show up, 300 pounds overweight. So Raider Nation doesn't have to worry about that. He's a very self-disciplined man, but there will be some concern if he holds out, basically.
So if he does that, do you interpret that different from like when we saw Donald Penn hold out, where you got a guy that's, closer to the tail end of his career? He's, claims he was only in it to win a Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden the Raiders have a good season and then he holds out, versus Mack, who's right smack dab in the prime of his earning potential. This is probably the biggest contract he's ever going to get. He's, defensive player of the year, arguably one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. Like, do we have a different understanding of that if somebody like Mac holds out versus Penn?
It really boils down to money and trying to maximize their value. So when it comes to that situation, I mean, Penn deserved a raise in his mind, and he got one, and he got the extension. The biggest thing is he wanted an extension. He wanted to play for a couple more years. He didn't just want to be on the 1 year and done deal. Where and Mac is looking at right now. They're looking at where they're going to put that money. Are they going to back end it so he doesn't have to pay 13.5% taxes in California as opposed to no state tax in Las Vegas? So we're talking about a 5-year deal, and you put that on top of his current year, so it'd be a 5-year extension and a total of a 6-year deal, similar to what happened with Carr. I mean, you're looking at this guy making $113 million, $120 million in that range. So when you think about it, I mean, would you give up $1 million? Would you give up $5 million? He's looking at maximizing his potential, but he also wants to stay a Raider. He's been very clear about that, and the team has been very clear about that. So both sides want the same thing. It's just right now, it's just money crunching.
Well, hopefully they get it done. I know that's probably the most anxiety that Raider Nation has had this offseason when it comes to the team. All this, we've had a lot of feel-good stories and a lot of things to get excited about, and that's the one thing that there's been some trepidation. So hopefully the Raiders get that locked up soon. All right, Scott, so you're there in Vegas. Tell us about the stadium. What's it looking like? What's the Las Vegas Raiders? It's not just a big spot in the desert anymore. They're digging ground. They're pouring concrete. They're putting up girders. Tell us what you see out there.
Oh yeah, you can actually see it now. If you're driving by on I-15, you can actually see structure out of the ground. And that was something that just happened in the last month. And they've started working on the third deck of the first section that they poured cement on. And so they've gone 3 high there, and they're starting to branch out. And that's the north end, the very, very north end of the stadium. And then they're working around, they're working in a horseshoe towards the end. And I believe they've got all the blasting done finally. So the whole grading is just about complete. They have structural steel going up, which is awesome. It's everything, I've talked to the folks out there, and everything that I've heard is it's on schedule. And they're looking at, they're kind of funny because the local is in a competition with the laborers that are building the Inglewood Stadium. And the Inglewood Stadium is a little bit more advanced than the Las Vegas Stadium, but the Las Vegas Stadium doesn't have as much. It's not as big, so they're in a race, and they're saying we're going to get it done by May. Right now or April or May of 2020. Now here's the thing: the facade will actually be on and around the stadium before the end of 2019, as long as they stay on schedule. So it'll look done before Christmas of 2020. It'll look done. They'll still have stuff to do on the inside, but the exterior will be completely finished by then.
Wow. That's cool. That is really cool. So, all right. So let me hit you with some fun Raider questions. So if you could attend a game anywhere, including Las Vegas, a Raider game anywhere, Scott, where would it be?
Raider game anywhere?
Anywhere.
Let's see. If I had to pick, well, I'd love to see one in Las Vegas. Obviously, it's going to be a beautiful stadium. I would love to see one in AT&T. I haven't been there yet. But you know what? The most fun I had actually was going to the Hard Rock in Miami. That is a gorgeous stadium, and the South Beach in November was fantastic. It was just an absolute blast. So I actually like that one the best. But yeah, I can't wait to see what Las Vegas Stadium is like.
Who goes on your Raiders Mount Rushmore? And we're going to spot you Al Davis. So who goes up there with Al? Who's the 3 that join him on Mount Rushmore?
John Madden, Kenny Stabler. Ooh, Now I got to pick somebody.
I know. It's always a
I'm gonna,
and we're not.
I have to pick somebody now.
I know, and we're not list bullies around here. I won't bully on the list, but it's hard. It's the hardest dang. I swear, man. And mine changes all the time too. It's like, and sometimes I don't even have Madden on it. Believe it.
I got to put Madden up there because I mean, he's just amazing, and he's continued to be part of the whole thing. Wow. After that, you know what? I'll say this: Ron Wolf. I'll put Ron Wolf up there.
Whoa,
because if you take a look at the Raiders today, he's still influencing that. Reggie McKenzie, John Gruden, the Ron Wolf guys. You know that? So the success that the Raiders have today, this year, the next year, that will still be part of the Ron Wolf coaching tree. So, and executive tree. I think Ron Wolf, who finally got into the Hall of Fame, I believe that, his method is still good. His way of drafting is fantastic. His method of drafting, his valuation of it, and and he was a fantastic Raider all the way into to 89. So, other than the 2 years he had with Tampa Bay, which his team that he built in Tampa Bay went to the NFC Championship in 79, from expansion to NFC Championship. So there you go.
There you go. I like it. That's cool, Scott. You're the first one that's ever gone Ron Wolf on us. That's awesome. Madden and Stabler make the rounds, but definitely the first one to pick Ron Wolf. That was cool. Okay, if you could retire any of the numbers of the Raiders, and we're getting ready to drop episode number 81, and as you know, there's a player on the Raiders named Pharaoh Brown who wears number 81, and it's just all kinds of wrong seeing a guy wearing number 81 and Brown in it. It makes you think, because the Raiders don't retire numbers, it's not a big deal to see Marshawn wear 24, even though Woodson and Willie Brown won it or wore it, or, even now to see Martavis Bryant wear 12, that's not terrible. But to see a guy named Brown wear 81, that's craziness. So give me some guys that you think should be. Of course, we know Jim Otto's retired. It's the only one for the Raiders. If you could retire any of the Raider numbers, who would you pick?
Wow. If I could retire them all, they wouldn't have enough to fill the team.
25, 32, 63, 75. Yeah.
I mean, how many, 20, 22, 37, 75, 72. I mean, we could just keep going with this. I mean, 87, 81, 32. My goodness, you could just keep going. And multiple people have wore Hall of Fame numbers. That's the thing. I mean,
that's what 24's got to go down. You got to take 24 off the board because of Willie and Charles. I mean, that's right.
Charles and Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, old man Willie. But then again, I look at it like this. I like the fact that the Raiders don't retire numbers, because then when you take a number, if I was running the organization, I would pull up the history of that number and I would say, those are the shoes that you have to walk in. I would use it as a historical motivation thing. Look, do you want to let down? If you're Marshawn Lynch, now Marshawn, that's an easy number. But let's say you're Gary Conley. Let's take a look at number 21. Cliff Branch, who should be in the Hall of Fame, wore that number, and speed kills. And this is what he did, and that's what you have to live up to. That you're wearing that number, you better live up to that number, because that number has its own history. And I would do that individually with all the players that are wearing certain numbers.
I think that's an awesome point. And, especially with somebody like Conley and 21, and oftentimes, we forget as Raider fans about Nnamdi Asomugha, because he kind of left right as he was, getting into his prime, and then, whatever happened with Philly and whatnot. But when he was a Raider, Nnamdi was, it was him and Darrelle Revis as far as who were the best corners in the league. They were 1 and 1A every year for like 4 years straight. Nnamdi was an absolute rock star, monster, lockdown, whatever you want to call him, cornerback. Yeah, absolutely. So Conley's got some big shoes to fill when it comes to 21 as a defensive back.
Oh, yeah.
And then of course, as you mentioned, the legend of Cliff Branch. All right, so I got one more for you. Would you rather, Scott, the Raiders win a Super Bowl and then have 9 years of futility, or 10 straight years of being a playoff team?
I would trade, the ring is more important than anything. If you could trade, yes, Super Bowl, you always take the Super Bowl. I would love to see them in the playoffs every year, but if they were going to lose for 10 years straight, no, you got to. I'd rather have. We've had 14 years. The Raiders have had 14 years of futility. Fans have had that. They deserve the Super Bowl now, right?
That's
so let's
right.
take the Super Bowl now.
We know what 9 straight years of futility feels like, right, Scott? So we've already been there. Give us the ring.
Raiders fans already know that. I mean, heck, last year I remember I was so excited about covering the Raiders, and I covered 8 games on the road, and you go into Kansas City. And the Raiders had, they had that beautiful groundhog play. They won at home on Thursday night. And so they're 6-6. They've managed to claw their way to 6-6, and they're tied with the Chiefs. You go in there, I say, hey, good luck, Reggie, because I saw Reggie and I saw some other guys. Good luck. And everybody was excited. And then you go out there and you watch that game, and it was like being kicked in the groin for 3 quarters. And just going, thank you, may I have another? It was like hazing. It was all 14 years lumped up into one game, and you right at that point you're just like, there's something wrong with this team. There's something wrong with this entire organization. They had worked their way, they had taken their lumps, but they were in first place. They were tied with the Chiefs, and that whole 14 years was lumped up into that one game for me, as someone to cover it, but also deep down inside a fan.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, you were, and I think that's one of the things that I like about your reporting, Scott, is that you were a fan before you became a member of the media. So you carry that fan baggage with you. And I say that fondly, that you carry that with you, and it comes out. And I think that's a really cool thing that shows up in your writing and your style, is that, this means something to you more than you're just not on the beat. You're a fan of the Raiders, and you bleed silver and black, and you fly your pirate flag high. And that's one of the things that we really enjoy about not only talking with you, but again, following you. So Raider Nation, follow him. He's at Scott_Winter NFL on Twitter. Scott, what else can we promote for you? What can we look forward to seeing from you the rest of the offseason as the season progresses? What's going on in Scott Winter's world?
Well, right now I'm looking at I'm having a meeting this weekend about getting back on the radio. As you know, I was on the radio for the last 8 weeks with CBS Sports Radio, and now I'm moving into a different direction. Not necessarily by my choice, but we have things happen, doors close, doors open. So I'm looking at looking to get back onto the radio, and if that comes to fruition, you guys will be. I'll let you guys know first, so you can.
Awesome.
You can, So, but no, if I can do that, that would be here in Las Vegas. Then I could stick around here in Las Vegas. Otherwise, unfortunately, I have to probably find some kind of different way to pay the bills. So, and that would dig into my physical coverage of the Raiders, which has been a blessing so far. I've been able to go. I was at the draft in Oakland and Alameda, and I was able to see rookie minicamp, and I was able to see the first voluntary workouts. It was pretty awesome. So, and then I'm able to take that information and pass it along to the fans, which is the whole point of all of this.
Well, that's awesome, Scott. We'll continue the success. You worked hard to get to where you were at, and we know that with that that continued hard work that you've put into this, it will good things will come from it. So keep getting after it, keep grinding, and we appreciate you, and again look forward to continue following you and your reporting, and trust that you got good things on the horizon. And heck, if you end up back towards the South during draft time next year, it's going to be here in Nashville in my backyard, and we're going to have a big presence for Raiders Fan Radio, and you are of course always welcome to join us, and hopefully we can link up for that if you plan on attending the draft. And as far as road games this year, I think we're looking at maybe Cincinnati. That's one that we're talking about. We're maybe looking at even Denver this year. So definitely Raiders Fan Radio is going to be we're going to be on the bus this year a little bit when it comes to road games, and so hopefully our paths will cross again, Scott.
There you go. I look forward to it.
All right, buddy. Well, hey, thanks again for joining us here on Raiders Fan Radio, and we will definitely talk to you again soon.
All right. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, brother.
You guys
See
are
you.
great.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, Sonny, had a fun time catching up with Scott there. That was a good interview to hear from Scott. We wish Scott the best. He's in a little bit of a transition, as he mentioned, between the show he was doing and kind of what's on the horizon for him. But man, it was good to catch up with him. Good to hear. Scott's got a firsthand account of the team in a way that none of us have. So it's really cool to hear that and to hear his continued involvement with the team. And so we're going to look forward to seeing what's next for Scott to come. And who knows, he might even be more of a regular part of our show again going forward, which would definitely be a cool thing.
Always appreciated Scott. We had him on when we were all nobodies, and we're still nobodies, and he's a little better somebody than we are. But it's been neat to kind of sit back and watch him go from the Carolina Raider on Twitter, just getting on there, right in the smack dab of his living room, drinking his Dr. Pepper, and just riffing on the Vegas thing, and then to see him covering away games. But the coolest thing was when I think we had him on the show once or two times, and then he was at the press conference where Davis. Something to do with the Vegas deal, but it made it official. I think it was the vote. Yeah. Wasn't it the NFL owners vote?
I believe so, yeah. It was the owners meetings
and
he
was there, front row, and got to ask a question to Mark Davis, and it was all over, it was on NFL Network. And so there was a guy who started off on Twitter, a fan of the Raiders in Carolina. He was from, the Bay Area originally, moved to Carolina, loved the Raiders, did his homework, and there he was asking Mark Davis a question on NFL Network about it. And to me, that's like the American dream lived out right in front of you, combined with how to utilize technology in this day and age. And so I've always loved Scott Winter's story, but also really appreciated who he is and how he handles himself. And it's just always been neat to kind of see how that's progressed in his career, and wish him nothing but success. It was great to meet him. Got to meet him at the Titans game this year, and I got to see him in person and stuff. I got to see the hat in person. It was pretty cool. It was almost like seeing the Harry Potter hat when you go down to Disneyland and stuff like that. It was pretty neat. So yeah, wish him nothing but the best moving forward.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And so we'll definitely look forward to watching Scott as his career continues to evolve with the Raiders. Well, Sonny, that's all we got for this week. Next week we got some more interviews coming on the horizon. Got some cool stuff in the works. Some more current players upcoming. Some more celebrity interviews upcoming, and then of course catching up with local media members and people that are covering the team like Scott. So fun stuff coming up for Raiders Fan Radio. You can get in touch with us at any time on Twitter at Raiders Fan Radio. You can email the show at show@RaidersFanRadio.com. You can find me and Sonny both on Facebook. You can find our show Facebook page, which is at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. That's the one that we're looking for to hit 3,000 this week. So we can, and then we're going to select one of the last 15 that are going to get us to 3,000. You might be one of the ones selected for a free gift from us here as a show of our appreciation. Let's see what else. What else am I missing? Oh, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast. You can find our show. Sonny, we got a lot of people listen to us on YouTube now.
Yeah, man, YouTube's rocking.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So those of you that are listening to us on YouTube, we thank you for that. And so there you go. That's I think that's about all we got. Kind of a short week.
If I unlike the page at 2,998, and then somebody likes it again to bring up to 2,999, and then I like it to be the 3,000th, can I get the presents?
If you can pronounce it, then I'll send you something.
Pronounce what?
What you just said.
I just said it.
Become what? What number were you going to become?
Become the 3,000th. 3,000th.
See?
3,000th. Like.
Are you sure about that?
You say it.
No, I can't say that.
Try it.
3,000th.
Yeah, that was good.
3,000. That was pretty good. Yeah.
Basically the same thing.
I'm a pro. What are you going to do?
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Okay, you do that. You unlike
I'm gonna rob somebody of their glory.
No, of course not. We will. If that were, you know what? You're not above doing that. So just as a disclaimer,
not
whoever's 2,999 or 3,001.
Your uncle, who still has his appendicitis, is my uncle as well. So it's definitely in our system.
It's definitely in our system. So yeah. So just to clarify, Sonny is not eligible for the prize. So I will definitely take that into account when I'm going over the likes. All right. So I think that's all we got. You got anything else?
Create a dummy account. Do it anyway.
June. You gonna have a burner account? Haven't we had enough of the burner accounts this week?
Hey, bro, if Jeff from Kansas likes it, don't worry about it.
Hey, did you see the tweets? And so that to have a burner account, you got to name it. It's your favorite movie character plus what you had for lunch that day. So mine was Indiana Pita. Because it's the first name. You take your
favorite movie character?
Favorite movie character's first name and what you had for lunch. So mine was Indiana Pita.
All right, mine would be Ron Pizza.
Ron Pizza. I'm guessing Ron Burgundy, and you eat
Ron
pizza
Burgundy, bro.
every day.
Yeah, Ron Burgundy. Yeah, we had pizza today. Go figure, right? Of course, it'd be Ron Pizza about 6 to 7 days a week.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. All right, that's all we got this week for Raiders Fan Radio. Sonny, hit him with a tagline.
From Womb to the Tomb, Raider Nation. I don't know. I'm just glad I can prove to the world I've had sex 3 times.